everyone, and welcome to The Doctor Is In. I'm Dr. Freddie Gomez. COVID 19 continues to spread across the globe, and not a day goes by that we don't worry about the virus. But what exactly are viruses? Where do they come from? How do we get them? And how do they spread? Yun ang mga importanteng kailangan tanungin. We'll also explain why proper hand washing is your most effective way of preventing viruses from spreading. We have with us today Dr. Lea Necitas Apostol. She is a virologist and supervising science research specialist at the Research Institute for Tropical Medicine in Muntinlupa City. Welcome to the show, Dr. Apostol.
Hello, good afternoon, sir, and magandang hapon po sa kanilang lahat. Thank you for inviting me.
Now, Doctor, let's get right into the topic. Ano ba talaga mga viruses? What are these at paano ba ito nabubuhay?
Okay, so viruses technically, so they are the smallest and simplest life forms na sinasabi. So they either contain DNA or RNA. That's why parang may category tayo ng mga DNA virus or RNA virus. And they are called intracellular parasites. So what do we mean by intracellular parasites? So they require or kailangan nila ng living cells for them to propagate. They require living cells in order for them to thrive or in order for them to reproduce. So initially, these viruses are parang termed as poison, but eventually nag-evolve yung kanilang definition as life forms, but because they cannot isolate using yung mga media na ginagamit sa mga bacteriology, na-delete yung notion na they are life forms. And the accepted notion now is that viruses are biological chemicals. So, yeah.
Okay, so viruses need a host to replicate, ano? Kasama na mga rito ang mga tao o kaya hayop. Paano naman ito umaatake sa katawan natin, like in the case of COVID-19? At while we're at that, sagutin na rin natin kung paano ba ito kumakalat.
Okay, so kumakalat ito, so there are sinasabing parang routes of transmission. So we have to define kung ano-ano yung mga yan. So yung we have vertical transmission. Yung vertical transmission is just from mother to child, like yung mga HIV. And the second one is yung sinasabi nilang horizontal transmission, and that is the transmission from person to person. And under which we have the different routes of transmission. Paano nata-transmit sa person to person? So we have contact route of transmission. So ito yung like measles. So makakontak ka ng infected person, and then through droplet transmission, pwede kang ma-infect. The other thing is sexual transmission. Pwede kang ma-infect ng mga virus or ma-transmit yung mga virus na to. And also the so-called SARS-CoV. So ang known transmission of SARS-CoV now is droplet transmission. So what do we mean by droplet transmission? Ito yung transmission na it has something to do with the size of the particles na nasususpend sa air. Like say for example, for droplet transmission, ito yung less than 5 micrometer, and then nasususpend siya sa air and then for a certain period of time. And within 1 meter distance, you can be infected through droplet transmission. The other transmission or route of transmission is the airborne, which is actually, ito yung parang sinasabi nila, it will be airborne, your SARS-CoV. But the thing is, for the airborne transmission, it requires a lesser size of viral particles, that's less than 5 micrometer, and you can be infected even hindi ka more than 1 meter distance. So yun yung mga how viruses can spread through fecal-oral route also. Like say for example, the rotavirus can be transmitted through fecal-oral route. It's just the ingestion of contaminated food or water. And then drinking contaminated water, and also for polioviruses through fecal-oral route transmission. So those are the ways how viruses are spread in the community.
Now let's continue our discussion by answering questions from our viewers. This one is from Spencer. Tanong ni Spencer, I heard viruses exist only to reproduce. Does this mean that they're alive? What do you think, Dr. Apostol?
Okay, so as virologist, no, so this is my concept. Okay, so there's a gray area actually whether to how to categorize viruses as living versus non-living thing. So if you will look structurally, okay, dun sa genetic structure ng mga viruses, they're just assemblies of proteins, nucleic acids like your DNA or RNA, lipids, and carbohydrates. So in that case, they are just complex biochemicals, so to say, but they are lacking or devoid of essential functions like they cannot reproduce on their own. Okay, they require living cells in order for them to reproduce. So in that case, without living cells, they cannot thrive, and so therefore, for me, they're not really living things.
Okay, and this one, we have another question from Laika. Tanong ni Laika, if viruses mutate, does it mean that they're more deadly?
It depends on the mutation. No? So, yung mga viruses, continuously nag-mutate yan because, viruses mutate very fast simply because, they multiply faster than any other organisms. The thing is, since they only contain RNA or DNA sa kanilang material, a genetic makeup na sinasabi, they are very prone to errors na sinasabi or mutation during replication inside the host or inside the human body. So yung mutation kasi, depende kung magiging deleterious ba siya or parang neutral or favorable ba for to infect individuals. So depende yon. So for mutations, we need to understand na maraming klase yan. It's not just you say mutation. May sinasabi sila na konti-konti or pa-isa-isa na mutation, may mga deletions lang, inaalis mo lang yung isang particular protein doon sa genes. Yung isa naman is nag-i-insert ka lang ng isang protein sa genes, but there's no alteration of the virulence or the ability to cause disease. Pag ganun lang yung mutation. Usually for para mag-increase or mag-alter yung virulence ng isang virus, okay, it has to undergo yung sinasabing mutation called recombination or reassortment. Now, yung recombination is, for example, the poliovirus. Okay? Yung poliovirus, pag na-co-infect ka ng another type of parang of the same family, para siyang polio din dito sa body mo. For example, may HFMD ka and then may polio ka at the same time. So there's a chance, big chance na nagkakaroon ng recombination or nagkakaroon ng genetic exchange of materials. So yung gene ng poliovirus, nagmimix siya sa gene ng isa pang enterovirus. Parang ganun. So that's recombination. The other concept is that yung reassortment, ito yung nangyayari sa mga influenza kung saan nagkakaroon tayo ng mga pandemic ng mga influenza. Yung reassortment, it's just like recombination. Pero the only thing is that it is only applicable sa mga viruses like influenza. So may genetic exchange nito. So in this case, for recombination and reassortment na sinasabi, okay, nagkakaroon ng genetic alteration talaga. So naiiba tuloy yung virulence na sinasabi or the ability of the virus to infect or to cause disease na alter actually yung sinasabi ring host range. Okay? And so that's why sinasabi nila na, okay, mas virulent ito or high infectivity yung virus na to or strain na to because of this certain kind of mutations. So, depende sa mutation. Depende sa mutation kung mag-alter yung virulence.
When it comes to so virulence and mutation definitely are a very complex topic. and there's a lot that we still need to know about, especially dito sa COVID-19 na to, no? So viruses can be scary, but there is a way to combat them. We'll learn more about viruses when we come back. You're watching The Doctor Is In. Welcome back to The Doctor Is In. I'm Dr. Freddie Gomez. So pinag-uusapan po natin today are pretty much viruses. Ano ba ito ang mga virus na to? Pwede ba natin itong i-consider na isang buhay na elemento just like bacteria, or are they just a collection? Are they an organism, collection of different chemicals and proteins? So yun ang pinag-uusapan natin because paano ba natin malalabanan ang COVID-19? We have to understand muna kung ano ba talaga ang COVID-19. So part of that understanding is ano ba talaga itong kalaban natin at paano ba ito kumakalat? So the more we know about COVID-19 and viruses in general, the better we can combat this. So yan pa rin ang pinag-uusapan natin. Kasama pa rin natin ang virologist na si Dr. Lea Necitas Apostol. So a virus can cause infectious diseases. We all know that. But before we go into that, Dr. Apostol, ano po ba ang pagkakaiba ng viral at bacterial infection? Madalas na tanungin ito.
So basically, yung viral and bacterial infection, pareho lang naman, parang infection pa rin siya. It's just that ang difference is that yung causative agent, the causative agent of course for viral are viruses. And then for bacterial infection, definitely from bacteria. Okay, so yung bacteria in terms of size, syempre mas malaki siya kaysa sa viruses. But for virulence, or yung sinasabi nilang pathogenicity, I think it depends on the pathogen. So it depends on the viral agent, it depends on bacteria. But still, yeah, they can elicit infection. Right? Okay. And mostly for viral infections, I could say that acute infection yung ginagawa.
Yes, okay. So malaking difference between virus and bacteria, especially when it comes to the way that each are treated. So yung mga diseases na caused by a virus, iba po ang treatment nila as opposed to that sa mga bacteria. So what speaking of that, Dr. Apostol, what are some common diseases caused by viruses at paano ito maiwasan? Yung mga common dito sa Pilipinas.
Yes, for bacterial infection, or going back now, for bacterial infection, we have available antibiotics or mga antibacterial agents. But for a viral infection, not so much. So ang ginagawa lang, we have available for the prevention of viral infections. So we have available vaccines naman. Ginagamitan natin ng vaccines. But for the treatment of viral infections, we have antiviral din naman. Like say for example, influenza, we have the Tamiflu, that's an antiviral drug. But most of the viral infections, ang tinitreat lang natin kasi is by symptoms. Like say for example, if that viral infection is presenting fever, then we give the patient yung mga antipyretics lang. If that virus parang nag-represent siya ng pain, then we give analgesic to the patients. So for viral diseases, hindi tayo nagko-concentrate doon sa treatment, but mostly doon sa preventive measures, which is of course yung vaccines.
So okay, so yun ang pinakamagandang preventive measure for that as of now, for viruses is if there is a presence of a vaccine. So yun ang pinakamagandang weapon natin is to prevent being infected with that virus. Now let's answer some questions here from social media. Maraming mga questions tayo posted on the CNN Philippines Facebook page. We have one from Ken. Ang tanong ni Ken, ano po ang karaniwang sintomas ng viral disease at kailan dapat kumonsulta sa doktor?
So ang karaniwan na na sintomas, definitely for all infectious agents, infections caused by yung bacteria o kaya yung viruses, nandyan yan yung fever. That's the most prominent symptoms of bacterial or viral infection. So depending on the type of virus, so nag-iiba din yung kanilang clinical presentation. Like if that is dengue, then definitely iba rin yung kanyang mga sintomas kaysa sa polio or sa rotavirus. So doon nag-iiba-iba. And yun.
Okay. Dr. Lea Necitas Apostol, marami pong salamat for your help in answering our questions today. Now, one of the best defenses against viruses is hand washing with soap and water. But how is this possible? Ganun kasimple lang? Malaking epekto ba ito? Find out more when we return here on The Doctor Is In. This is Dr. Freddie Gomez, and we're glad to have you here on The Doctor Is In. We have with us Dr. Joey Francis Hernandez, Secretary General of the Philippine Society of Public Health Physicians, to talk about why hand washing can be your best defense against viruses. Thank you for joining us today, Dr. Hernandez.
Hi, Dr. Freddie, and to all our viewers, good afternoon.
Now, dahil sa COVID-19, napakaraming tao ang gumagamit na ng sanitizer, alcohol, at iba pang mga proteksyon sa kamay. Pero how effective are these in fighting viruses and bacteria as opposed to hand washing with normal soap and water?
Ayun. So, thanks for that question. No? So, bale, I'll just start with hand washing as a very important measure on a clinical and public health perspective kasi it's easy, it's cheap, and effective in disease transmission prevention and also prevention of spread of infections. Compared to your sanitizers, your hand washing with running soap, with running water and soap can remove all types of microorganisms, including chemicals on your hands. And also, if your hands are visibly soiled, we recommend hand washing with soap and water over sanitizers.
Okay, at Doc, marami pa rin nakakalimot kung paano ang tamang paghuhugas ng kamay. Can you explain to us how to properly wash our hands in order to prevent sickness?
Yeah. So, for us to wash hands, basically merong mga lumalabas na health promotion initiatives. Like for example, sing happy birthday or wash for 40 seconds. So basically we can clump it into 5 steps. First is to wet your hands with soap. Wet your hands with running water, and then use enough soap to lather, enough to cover your palms, and then you scrub. So you scrub in different motions. For example, palm to palm, and then you do your palm with the back of your hand, and also you cover the back of your fingers, and also your thumbs, and also your wrists. So these are the common areas wherein we miss in hand washing. And then we rinse with running water as well, and turn off the tap using your elbow, since your hands are already clean, and you dry them with a single-use paper towel or a tissue paper. So these are 5 steps which you can think of, and they usually last for 20 to 40 seconds. So wet, lather, scrub, rinse, and dry.
Now, Dr. Hernandez, a lot of patients also ask kung bakit malaki ang difference when someone uses a hand sanitizer. They put the hand sanitizer in their hands and it remains there. They just rub it continuously until mawala na yung hand sanitizer or magkaroon na ng film sa kamay. As opposed to hand washing, you need to rinse off the soap. You need to go under the water, running water, and rinse it off and towel it dry. So are both just as effective even though the process of applying them, of using them are very different?
Well, mas effective pa din yung soap and water as mentioned because not all viruses and bacteria can be removed with hand sanitizers, and they also vary depending on the concentration. If soap and water are not accessible, you can use hand sanitizers with at least 60% alcohol content. And then there are certain viruses and bacteria which cannot be removed by sanitizers. For example, norovirus, which causes diarrhea, and also Clostridium difficile, which is an important bacteria causing certain diseases. And hand sanitizers don't actually work when your hands are visibly soiled and they are greasy, and they cannot remove harmful chemicals. For example, when we handle certain chemicals in our workplace, they don't get removed with hand sanitizers. And usually, we need to dry off the sanitizers from our hands, which we don't normally do. So, better pa din yung soap and water and then drying them with single-use tissue or paper towel.
Okay, very, very good points that you have there, Dr. Hernandez. Now let's get back to answering some more social media questions sent in via the CNN Philippines Facebook page. We have a question from Verinis. Should I use tissue to turn off the faucet or opening the door of a public restroom after washing my hands?
Well, you can use tissue since it creates a barrier between your hands and the dirty surfaces. However, I mean, not all restrooms have tissues available, and that's a fact. So we can use our elbows or any part of our body that's not our hands, because our hands are more prone for like when we accidentally touch our mouth, nose, and eyes. So we can use other body parts, like for example, our elbows, and then we can rinse it afterwards when we go home.
That's right. That's right. That's actually one of the last steps in proper hand washing. After the sixth step of hand washing, the tissue that you use to dry your hands is the same tissue that you will use to turn off the faucet, turn off the water source, and then throwing it properly in the trash can. Okay, so we have another question also from Honorio. Ang tanong ni Honorio, what can I use to clean my hands if soap and water isn't available?
Ayun, so perfect, no? Since we discussed it just now, hand sanitizers, hand gel na alcohol-based, at least 60%. So might as well carry with you small bottles everywhere you go.
Dr. Hernandez, pertaining to this, ano, if you would advise our viewers to carry something in their pocket kapag pupunta sila sa trabaho or outside, would they carry a bottle of hand sanitizer, or would you recommend carrying a small bottle of liquid soap to be able to wash their hands at the faucet?
Well, of course, no, kung kasya naman sa bulsa mo pareho, small bottles of each, that would be better, no? However, more common kasing dinadala yung alcohol since not all establishments have running water and not everywhere you go ay may running water. So mas convenient kasi you can be able to sanitize your hands with alcohol alone rather than needing or finding a water source, no? So if you can, bring both, but if you're just going to bring one, bring alcohol.
Okay, very good. Before I let you go, Dr. Hernandez, do you have a quick message for our viewers?
Ayun, so most especially hand washing has been very popular na to everyone with COVID-19, especially to adults. Ang payo ko lang for parents, make it enjoyable for children as well. Make it creative, since our children as well are very vulnerable to COVID, no? So might as well teach them hand washing at an early age, provide cues kung kailan ba dapat mag-hand wash, and then involve the whole family para paglaki nila, nadadala nila yung practice of hand washing, and it will save their lives.
Thank you very much, Dr. Joey Francis Hernandez, for joining us today. And thank you to our viewers for watching and sending in your questions also today. Remember, viruses are everywhere. And while some are harmless to humans, some can make you sick, and worse, can be very deadly. That is why the best thing we can do to avoid getting infected is to follow what experts recommend. wash your hands, wear a mask, and stay at home if you can. This is Dr. Freddie Gomez. See you soon and keep safe.